The text message notification pierced the silence of Felicity Kane's cramped apartment at 2:13 a.m., jolting her awake from a dream she immediately forgot. Groaning, she fumbled for her phone on the nightstand, squinting at the bright screen in the darkness. The message was from an unknown number. Final offer, $150 million. I need your answer by morning, Walter. This acquisition can't wait any longer. Felicity blinked twice, now fully awake. Someone had clearly texted the wrong person, someone with far more zeros in their bank account than she had. She considered ignoring it but found herself typing back. Wrong number. No Walter here, just a very confused kindergarten teacher who definitely doesn't have anything worth $150 million. She set her phone down, assuming that would be the end of it, and rolled over to go back to sleep. But within seconds, the phone lit up again. My apologies for disturbing you, though I find it hard to believe there's a kindergarten teacher awake at this hour grading finger paintings. Felicity smiled despite herself. Actually, I was sleeping until some billionaire started texting me about millions of dollars. Kind of hard to go back to sleep after that. The reply came quickly. Fair point. Again, I apologize. Sleep well, mysterious teacher. Something about the exchange amused her. Good luck with your $150 million deal, mysterious billionaire. Hope Walter comes to his senses. She hadn't expected a response, but one came anyway. Walter rarely has sense, that's why I'm buying him out, but thank you, mysterious teacher whose name I don't know. It's Felicity Kane. Harrison Andrews, pleasure to meet you, even under these strange circumstances. Felicity stared at the name. Even she recognized Harrison Andrews, the Harrison Andrews, shipping and logistics magnate whose face occasionally graced business magazines and whose charitable foundation made headlines for its massive education grants. Well, Mr. Andrews, now I'm definitely not getting back to sleep. Call me Harrison, and since I've ruined your sleep, perhaps I could make it up to you with coffee sometime. Felicity's thumb hovered over the screen. Was a billionaire actually asking her out via accidental text? She decided to be direct. Are you asking me out when you have no idea who I am? I know you're a kindergarten teacher with a sense of humor who's kind enough to respond to misdirected texts at 2 a.m. That's more than I know about most people I meet at charity galas. Felicity laughed quietly in her darkened bedroom. Okay, Harrison, coffee sounds nice. That text exchange was the beginning of something Felicity could never have anticipated. The next morning, she almost convinced herself she'd dreamed the whole conversation until she checked her phone and found it was real. She also found a follow-up message with Harrison's personal number and a suggestion to meet at a coffee shop not far from her school that afternoon. She debated whether to actually go. It seemed ridiculous meeting a billionaire for coffee after a wrong number text, but curiosity won out. The coffee shop Harrison had suggested was a small, locally owned place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Felicity arrived early, nervously smoothing her simple sundress. She half expected a man with an entourage, wearing an expensive suit and checking his watch impatiently. What she got instead was a tall man in jeans and a casual button-down shirt, arriving precisely on time and scanning the room with interest. Harrison Andrews was more handsome in person than in photos, his dark hair slightly tousled, his hazel eyes warm as they landed on her. Felicity. He asked, approaching her table. She nodded, suddenly feeling tongue-tied. That's me, the kindergarten teacher who isn't Walter. Harrison laughed, the sound genuine and warm. I'm grateful for that. Walter is 63 and perpetually angry. As they ordered coffee plain black for him, caramel latte for her, Felicity found herself relaxing. Despite his wealth and status, Harrison was surprisingly easy to talk to. So, did Walter ever respond to your $150 million offer? She asked. Harrison nodded. This morning. He's selling, though he made me raise the price to $165 million. You say that so casually, Felicity remarked. Like you're talking about buying lunch. It's just money, Harrison said with a shrug. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy what it can do, the problems it can solve. But the numbers themselves are just that, numbers. Easy to say when you have so many of them, Felicity replied, then immediately worried she'd sounded rude, but Harrison laughed again. Fair point. I forget sometimes that my perspective is unusual. He leaned forward, genuinely curious. Tell me about teaching kindergarten. That seems like actual important work. For the next hour, they talked about her classroom, her 22 students, the challenges and joys of teaching 5-year-olds. Harrison listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. When she described the outdated supplies at her public school, he frowned. That's unacceptable. Education should be a priority. Preaching to the choir, Felicity said, but budgets are tight and kindergarten isn't exactly at the top of the funding list. Harrison made a note in his phone. I should look into that. Planning to fix the American education system over coffee, she teased. If only it were that simple, he replied, but I could certainly help your school. I didn't tell you all that to ask for money, Felicity said quickly. Harrison's expression softened. I know you didn't. That's part of why I'd like to help. He checked his watch. I hate to cut this short, but I have a meeting about the Walter situation. Could we do this again? Felicity hesitated. Harrison was charming and surprisingly down to earth, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they lived in completely different worlds. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Because I'm rich, he asked bluntly. Partly, she admitted. Also because this whole situation is bizarre. Wrong number texts don't usually lead to real relationships. Most good stories start with something unusual, Harrison countered. And I'd like to see where this one goes. Dinner tomorrow. Against her better judgment, Felicity found herself agreeing. Their dinner the next night was at a small Italian restaurant where Harrison, despite being recognized by the owner, insisted on a quiet table in the back rather than the prominent spot he was offered. I'm not interested in being seen, he explained to Felicity. I'm interested in continuing our conversation. And continue it did. Felicity learned that Harrison had built his shipping empire from a single cargo ship he'd purchased at 22 after dropping out of business school. Now, at 34, he controlled the largest privately owned logistics company in the country. But what about you? He asked. How did you decide to become a teacher? Felicity told him about growing up with parents who were both educators, about her love of watching children discover the world. There's this moment when a child first understands something, when they connect the letters to make a word, or when they suddenly grasp that numbers have patterns. Their whole face lights up. That moment is worth everything. Harrison watched her with an intensity that made her both nervous and exhilarated. You're passionate about what you do, that's rare. So are you, she pointed out. I've read about your company. You revolutionized shipping logistics. Harrison waved a hand dismissively. I built a successful business. It's not the same as shaping young minds. As dinner ended, Felicity found herself reluctant to say goodbye. Harrison seemed to feel the same, suggesting a walk through the nearby park. Under the park's soft lighting, with a gentle evening breeze stirring the leaves, Harrison told her about growing up with wealth but distant parents. They gave me everything except their time. It taught me early that money doesn't equal happiness. Is that why you work so much? Looking for happiness? Harrison considered this. Maybe, or maybe I work because it's all I know how to do well. He stopped walking, turning to face her. Until recently. What changed recently? Felicity asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. I accidentally texted a kindergarten teacher in the middle of the night, he said with a smile. And she was kind enough to correct me instead of ignoring me. Lucky mistake, Felicity murmured. I'm beginning to think so, Harrison agreed, and in the soft park lighting his eyes searched hers with a question that made her heart race. When he kissed her, it was gentle and brief, but it left her breathless. I'd like to see you again, he said. This time, Felicity didn't hesitate. I'd like that too. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Harrison was busier than anyone Felicity had ever known, but he carved out time for her dinner after she finished grading papers, coffee before her morning classes, weekend brunches that stretched into afternoon walks. He sent her texts throughout the day, small observations or questions that made her smile in the middle of teaching. For her part, Felicity showed Harrison a world he rarely experienced: the simple pleasure of browsing a bookstore without a schedule, the joy of an impromptu picnic in the park, the satisfaction of helping her prepare classroom activities for her students. A month into their relationship, Harrison appeared at her school one afternoon as her students were leaving. The children stared wide-eyed at the tall man in the doorway, and Felicity's heart skipped as she realized he'd never seen her in her element. "Class, this is my friend Mr. Andrews," she introduced him. "He's just visiting our classroom for a minute. Are you Miss Kane's boyfriend?" A bold little girl named Maya asked. Harrison's eyes danced with amusement. "I'd like to be," he answered honestly. After the children left, Harrison surveyed her classroom with interest. So this is where the magic happens. Felicity watched him take in the reading corner with its worn cushions, the art station with limited supplies, the outdated computer in the corner. "It's not much, but we make it work." Harrison frowned, touching a cracked shelf. "This isn't right, Felicity. These kids deserve better. Most schools are underfunded," she said with a sigh. "We do our best." Harrison was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Would you be offended if I wanted to help?" Felicity hesitated. "I don't want to be a charity case, Harrison." "It's not charity," he insisted. "It's investment in the future. These kids are the future." He took her hands. "Let me do this, not for you, for them." Felicity eventually agreed, with conditions. Any donation would go through proper channels and benefit the entire school, not just her classroom. Harrison readily agreed, and 2 weeks later, the school received an anonymous donation of $2 million for facility upgrades and supplies. The principal was ecstatic, announcing the windfall at a staff meeting. Felicity caught Harrison's eye across the dinner table that night. "Anonymous, huh?" he shrugged. "I didn't want anyone to make a fuss." $2 million is definitely a fuss," she said. "It's a start," he replied. Education should be a priority. As fall turned to winter, their relationship deepened. Harrison introduced Felicity to his small circle of trusted friends, most of whom were surprisingly down to earth despite their wealth. She introduced him to her parents, who were initially starstruck but quickly warmed to him when he engaged them in a passionate discussion about educational policy. Not everything was smooth. Their different worlds occasionally collided in unexpected ways. When Harrison had to attend a black tie gala, Felicity felt out of place among the wealthy and powerful, despite the designer dress he'd sent to her apartment. When she invited him to a casual game night with her teacher friends, he accidentally mentioned his recent purchase of a small island, creating an awkward silence. "I'm sorry," he told her as they walked back to her apartment that night. "I don't always know how to navigate these different worlds." "Neither do I," Felicity admitted. "Sometimes I wonder if we're kidding ourselves. You're a billionaire who buys islands and shipping companies. I'm a teacher who gets excited about discount craft supplies." Harrison stopped walking. "Do you think those differences matter more than what we have in common?" Felicity considered this. "No, but they do make things complicated." "Life is complicated," Harrison said simply. "That doesn't mean it's not worth it." Their relationship was tested again when a tabloid somehow got wind of their relationship. Billionaire bachelor Harrison Andrews slumming IT with public school teacher. Read the headline above a grainy photo of them holding hands in the park. Felicity was mortified. Harrison was furious. "I'm so sorry," he told her, appearing at her door with coffee and pastries the morning the story broke. "My lawyer is already demanding a retraction and apology." "It's fine," Felicity said, though her tight smile suggested otherwise. "I just hate being called a gold digger in the comments section." Harrison's expression darkened. "You're the least materialistic person I know. That's one of the things I love about you." The word hung between them, neither acknowledging it directly. They hadn't said love yet, though Felicity had been feeling it for weeks. Instead, she changed the subject. How do you deal with this all the time, people making assumptions about you based on your wealth? Harrison sighed, setting down his coffee. I don't usually, I keep to myself, my work. My close friends. He took her hand. Until you, as winter deepened, so did their connection. Harrison began including Felicity in discussions about his charitable foundation, valuing her insight about where educational funding was most needed. She introduced him to the joy of simple traditions: baking cookies, decorating a Christmas tree, building a snowman with her nieces and nephews. On Christmas Eve, Harrison invited Felicity to his penthouse for the first time. She'd been surprised he hadn't invited her sooner, but he'd explained he preferred spending time at her cozy apartment or out in the world. My place feels too much like a showroom, he admitted, not like a home. When she stepped off the private elevator into his penthouse, she understood what he meant. The space was immaculately designed, with priceless art on the walls and floor-to-ceiling windows offering spectacular city views. But it felt impersonal, like an upscale hotel suite rather than a home. "This is where you live?" she asked, taking in the sleek, modern furniture that looked barely used. Harrison shrugged. "I sleep here, I work here, but I'm not sure I live here, not really." Felicity's heart ached for him. For all his wealth, Harrison's space contained no personal touches, no signs of a life well lived, just expensive objects selected by designers. "We could change that," she suggested gently. Harrison's expression brightened. "I was hoping you'd say that." He led her to the dining room where a private chef had prepared an elaborate Christmas Eve dinner. As they ate, Harrison seemed unusually nervous, checking his phone frequently. "Is everything okay?" Felicity finally asked. "If you need to handle work, it's not work," Harrison assured her. He took a deep breath. "I have something to show you after dinner, a gift of sorts, though it's not exactly wrapped." Felicity's curiosity was piqued. After dinner, Harrison led her back to the elevator. "We need to go up," he explained. "There's more up than this?" she asked, surprised. Harrison smiled mysteriously as the elevator climbed one more floor and opened directly into what appeared to be a greenhouse or solarium, filled with lush plants and twinkling lights. In the center sat a small table with 2 cups of hot chocolate. "What is this place?" Felicity asked, enchanted by the indoor garden. "It's the penthouse rooftop," Harrison explained. "I've never used it for anything, but I had it converted." He guided her through the space, showing her reading nooks nestled among plants, a small kitchen area, comfortable seating arranged for conversation. "It's beautiful," Felicity said, "but I don't understand." Harrison took her hands. "I realized something when you saw my apartment. You were right, it's not a home, and I want a home, Felicity. I want a life that's about more than work and wealth." He gestured to the transformed space. "I thought we could start here, making something that's ours, not just mine or yours." Felicity's heart raced. "Are you asking me to move in with you?" "Eventually, yes," Harrison said. "But first, I'm asking if you'll help me learn how to build a real life, a life with meaning beyond business deals and acquisitions." He squeezed her hands. "I love you, Felicity. You've shown me a world I didn't know I was missing." Tears welled in Felicity's eyes. "I love you too, but Harrison, I don't need all this." She gestured to the elaborate space. "I just need you." "I know," he said softly. "That's why I love you, but I wanted to create something special for us. A place that could be ours." As they sipped hot chocolate under the stars visible through the glass ceiling, Felicity realized how far they'd come from that middle-of-the-night text message. Harrison had entered her life by accident, but staying in it had been a choice they'd both made, despite their differences. By spring, the rooftop garden had become their favorite retreat. Felicity had gradually begun staying over more often, bringing personal touches to Harrison's sterile penthouse, family photos on the mantel, colorful throw pillows on the sofa, children's artwork from her students displayed proudly on the refrigerator. Harrison's friends remarked on the change in him. He seemed more relaxed, more present, less consumed by work. Felicity's colleagues noticed her increased confidence and the way she glowed when talking about her relationship. In April, Harrison asked Felicity to accompany him on a business trip to Europe. "I need to check on some operations in Barcelona and Paris," he explained. "But I thought we could turn it into a vacation afterward. 2 weeks, just us." Felicity hesitated. "I'd have to take time off work." "Spring break covers the first week," Harrison pointed out, "and I may have already spoken to your principal about a special professional development opportunity for the second week." "You didn't," Felicity gasped. "I did," Harrison admitted. She was very supportive, especially when I mentioned visiting some innovative early education programs in Finland. "Finland? I thought you said Barcelona and Paris." Harrison grinned. "I may have expanded the itinerary a bit." Their European adventure began with business meetings in Barcelona, where Felicity explored the city during the day and met Harrison for romantic dinners each evening. In Paris, Harrison insisted on showing her all the tourist sites, patiently waiting as she took photos of everything. But it was in Finland where Harrison surprised her most. He'd arranged visits to several renowned early childhood education centers, where Felicity could observe and learn from their innovative approaches. Watching her engage with teachers and children, despite the language barrier, Harrison felt a certainty he'd never experienced before. On their last night in Helsinki, as they strolled along the waterfront at sunset, Harrison stopped suddenly. "You know," he said, "I've been thinking about that wrong number text that brought us together." Felicity smiled at the memory. "Best mistake ever." "It really was," Harrison agreed, turning to face her. "I was trying to buy a shipping company that night. But what I found instead was the missing piece of my life." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Felicity's breath caught as he knelt on one knee. "Felicity Kane, meeting you was an accident, but loving you has been the most intentional thing I've ever done. You've shown me what really matters in life. You've helped me build not just a house but a home." He opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Felicity's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she managed. "Yes, absolutely yes." Harrison slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, and stood to kiss her, lifting her off her feet in his enthusiasm. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "More than any business deal, more than any fortune." "I love you too," she replied. "The man, not the billionaire." Their wedding 6 months later was an intimate affair held in the rooftop garden that had become their special place. Only close friends and family attended, with Felicity's kindergarten students serving as flower girls and ring bearers. As they exchanged vows among the lush greenery, with the city skyline as their backdrop, Harrison couldn't take his eyes off his bride. "When I texted a wrong number that night," he said in his vows, "I thought I was pursuing a business opportunity. Instead, I found the love of my life. Some would call it luck or coincidence. I call it destiny." Felicity's vows were equally heartfelt. "You came into my life by accident, but nothing about our love has been accidental. Every day we choose each other, despite our different worlds. You've shown me that the most valuable things in life can't be bought, they can only be felt, experienced, and cherished." Their first year of marriage brought changes neither had anticipated. Harrison restructured his business to allow more time at home, delegating day-to-day operations to his trusted team. Felicity continued teaching, but also began consulting with Harrison's foundation on education initiatives. Together, they established a nonprofit dedicated to improving early childhood education in underserved communities, combining Harrison's business acumen with Felicity's educational expertise. Their pilot program in their own city proved so successful that other cities began requesting to implement the model. On their first anniversary, Harrison surprised Felicity with a weekend getaway to the mountain cabin where they'd spent their honeymoon. As they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Felicity handed Harrison a small wrapped package. "What's this?" he asked, unwrapping it carefully. Inside was a tiny pair of baby booties and a note that read, "Arriving in 7 months, our greatest adventure yet." Harrison stared at the booties, then at Felicity, his eyes wide. "You're pregnant," she nodded, tears of joy spilling down her cheeks. "We're going to be parents." Harrison gathered her in his arms, his own eyes damp. "This is the best news I've ever received," he whispered. "Better than any business deal, better even than when you said you'd marry me. Even better than acquiring Walter's company for $165 million, she teased. Harrison laughed. "I should send Walter a thank you gift. If he'd answered his phone that night instead of making me text, I might never have found you." 7 months later, their daughter Lily was born, a perfect blend of them both, with Harrison's hazel eyes and Felicity's auburn hair. As they brought her home to the penthouse, now truly transformed into a warm family home, Harrison reflected on how completely his life had changed in just 2 years. From billionaire workaholic to husband and father, he mused as Felicity settled into the nursery rocking chair with Lily. "All because I texted the wrong number." "The right wrong number," Felicity corrected with a smile. Harrison knelt beside the rocking chair, gently touching his daughter's tiny hand. "I used to think success meant building the biggest company, making the most money, winning the toughest negotiations," he said softly. "Now I know better." "What does success mean now?" Felicity asked, though she already knew the answer. Harrison looked up at her, his eyes full of love. "This. You, Lily, our family, the life we're building together." He kissed Felicity gently. "Thank you for answering that text message." "Thank you for sending it to the wrong person," she replied with a smile. As evening fell over the city, the little family remained together in the quiet nursery. Surrounded by the life they'd built, a life neither had imagined before a late-night text message changed everything. Outside, lights twinkled across the skyline, but inside, in the warmth of their home, Harrison and Felicity knew they had found something far more valuable than any fortune. They had found each other, and in doing so, had found exactly where they belonged.